You are listening to Skin, Earth, Vitality, the podcast where ancient wisdom meets modern vitality. If you are seeking to reconnect with your innate vibrancy, you're in the right place. I'm Emily Davis, a seasoned holistic esthetician and herbalist. Join me as we unlock the secrets of ancient skincare practices, explore the beauty of seasonal and nature-based living, herbalism, and true holistic well-being for you and the broader ecosystem. This podcast is brought to you by Stratum Aesthetics. Head to stratumaesthetics.com to find curated skincare, body care, and other wellness products hand-selected by me. Now enjoy the show. Please remember that the information I share in this podcast is based on my personal and professional experience and is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not individualized skincare advice, nor is it medical advice. I encourage you to take charge of your own health decisions and listen to your body, seeking out the resources and professionals that best support your wellness journey. Welcome back in. Today, I have a treat. I've created a fall self-care / wellness bucket list. And you can just think of this as like your cozy, grounding, replenishing to your vitality bucket list for this season. And I've got an herbalist twist to it. I just love fall as an herbalist. There are so many fun things that you can do with the harvest and all of the different festive seasonal goodies that there are. So grab a cup of tea, grab your notebook to take notes. Before we get into the show, I do want to talk a little bit about my online apothecary, my skincare apothecary. This is a curation that I have spent my entire almost 2-decade-long career as an esthetician obsessively studying ingredients and how ingredients interact with our skin and understanding the functions of the skin. And what I've done with all of that knowledge and all of that wisdom that I have accumulated is to curate very intentional goods to bring to you. I believe that beauty is a state of being, and the items in my online apothecary are to support that state of being. So go check that out. That is the best way that you can support my work here on the podcast. Okay, let's get back into the show. Grab your notebook. Let's take some notes. I've got 10 items here today. So it's a lengthy list, and don't feel like you have to do all of these. These are just some fun ideas to make your season feel better in your body and to enjoy and really slow down just a little bit. So the first one is to support your lungs, primarily through breath work. In traditional Chinese medicine, fall is the metal season, which is ruled by the lungs and the large intestine. Both of these are organs for exchange and release. So our lungs are taking in what's nourishing, and then they exhale what's no longer needed. And so we're releasing what we don't need anymore, both physically and emotionally. And breath work is so good for strengthening this rhythm, just helping you to release stagnation and grief. And this can also help restore both clarity and vitality. And then, of course, from a Western herbalism and physiological perspective, the cooler, drier air of fall can be very irritating to our respiratory tract. So some gentle breath work will improve the circulation to your lungs, the oxygenation and moisture retention in the lungs. So think of it as toning and hydrating your respiratory tissue from within. And so I love love different breathwork practices, you can get on YouTube, or Insight Timer is another free app for meditations and breathwork. You can also just simply do like a triangle breathwork pattern. So that's in through the nose for a count of 3. You pause at the top for a count of 3, and then exhale through the mouth for a count of 3. Box breathing is similar, where you're doing a count of 4 for your inhale, pause at the top for 4, exhale for 4, and then pause at the bottom for 4. 4-7-8 breathing is another favorite of mine. So this is an inhale through the nose for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. And I love this particular type because this longer exhale actually activates your parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest state that slows the heart rate, helps to lower blood pressure. It's basically just like a manual override for stress. So I like all 3 of these. 4-7-8 is wonderful if you are having anxiety, but any type of intentional breath is going to be very supportive, especially during this season, the season for the lungs. Number 2 on my list is eating warming foods. So in almost every medicine system, our digestion is seen as a fire. Like we've got this fire burning in our belly. Ayurveda calls it Agni, and we want to stoke the fire. So warm foods stoke that digestive fire, helping you break down and assimilate nutrients more efficiently. And when we're eating like cold smoothies or raw veggies or raw salads in the fall, our body actually has to use extra energy to heat them up to a core temperature before digestion can even begin. And this is really harsh, especially like cold and flu season. Our body needs to be using its energy to heal if we're sick, or, you know, if you just gave birth, or whatever it may be. If you're menstruating, your body needs energy elsewhere. And so eating warm foods actually helps to reduce the amount of energy that your body needs to do the digesting with. And that extra effort can leave you feeling very dry or tired. It can even cause bloating, especially if your system's already adjusting to shorter days and colder temperatures. Warm meals are just very energetically heavy, but in a good way. They soothe the airy, anxious energy of fall. They're just like very grounding for that, very calming for our body. Think of warm food as like a beautiful weighted blanket for your digestion. It's just bringing everything down to earth. So like broth or meat stock, stewed apples or stewed pears. Both of these are very high in pectin, green apples specifically, and this is a prebiotic fiber that's really supportive to your gut microbiome. This is one of the most healing things, underrated gut healing things, is stewed apples. So you dice the apple, you put it in a pan with some water and some cinnamon and other warming spices, maybe cardamom, ginger, and you let them cook down until before they get to a mush. I like them to still have a little bit of texture. Pears are especially great this time of year. Pears are very supportive to the lungs in Chinese medicine, a great go-to this time of year. And pears are also seasonal, which gets into my 3rd bucket list idea for the fall, which is eating seasonal produce. And honestly, this is on your bucket list for every season, but when we eat what's in season, we're literally eating what the earth is producing to balance the environment that we're living in. Seasonal foods are fresher, which means there's going to be more vitamins, more bioavailable vitamins, enzymes. Energetically, they are more alive. Produce that's been shipped across the world has lost some of its vitality and its life force is weaker. Our digestive fire also changes season to season. So I mentioned that in the colder months, it responds better to heavier cooked foods. We are also drier. So in the colder months, I'm sure you have experienced your skin has gotten a little bit drier. Seasonal foods like pears are very moistening. Our whole body responds better when we're eating what is in season. So some ideas for the fall are squash and sweet potatoes. These are very grounding and rich in beta carotene, very supportive for our skin and our immune system. Apples and pears, like I said, they're gently detoxifying. Pears are very moistening for the lungs. They're supportive to digestion when they're cooked because the cooking actually is what creates more of that pectin, that fiber that we want. Beets and carrots are very grounding. They're moistening. They're both roots, of course, and so they're very earthy and grounding. And again, in the fall, we're having this like crispy, airy kind of energy. And so any type of root food is just going to help bring us back down to earth. They literally grow underground. They're drawing up minerals and stability. And so when we're eating them, we're taking away some of that root energy. Cabbage, kale, broccoli, these are all cold weather veggies, and so they're going to grow much better in your garden during this time of year. They're going to be very helpful for immune system resilience. And then these veggies are also very gently pungent. And so they're very supportive to the lungs and the large intestine. Remember, those are the organs of this season. In Chinese medicine, each season has a pair of organs. And so the lungs and large intestine are both more vulnerable during this season and more active. The lungs are very easily affected by dryness and wind, and the large intestine can get sluggish or dry as well. And they're not just physical organs, they're energetic systems that represent the functions of exchange and purification. We're seeing outside of our window in the fall, nature is doing a lot of contracting and refining, and our body is going to mirror that as well. And these two organs are representative of that. And so eating foods that are supportive during this season to the lungs and the large intestine, things like these brassica veggies with their sulfur compounds, like I said, they're gently pungent and they support the liver and large intestine. They help to clear phlegm and strengthen immunity, basically moving out any lingering summer stagnation. But they're also mineral rich and helpful for moistening the body, especially moistening and soothing to the digestive tract. Mushrooms are another seasonal food that are fantastic this time of year. I personally like to do mushrooms in a broth, so we're getting the water extraction from the mushroom. These are really supportive to the immune system, especially mushrooms like reishi, shiitake, maitake. And then leeks, onions, garlic, these are all antimicrobial, great for clearing any stagnation in the lungs. I love to saute up some leeks and add them on top of potatoes or other root veggies. I think they're a great pair. So far, we've got breath work to support the lungs, eating warming foods, eating seasonal produce. Next up, grounding, warming, and breath-centered workouts. So we want to really emphasize rhythm, breath, stability this time of year. We want to work with the natural contraction that we're seeing during the season instead of fighting it. And so these types of workouts that are just like very grounding can help your nervous system downshift for some more sustainable energy during this very, again, crispy, flighty, windy type of season. You know, fall is more dry and cool, and we really want to balance this with warmth and stability and repetition. So think of things like strength training, weights, maybe a slower yoga flow, maybe warm or hot yoga, Pilates, bar, resistance band workouts, walking outside, and pairing all of this with intentional breath. Next up is foot baths. Oh, I love a foot bath, especially as the air starts to turn a little colder, our circulation starts to slow down. And so it's a really good time and an important time to keep our extremities warm, especially our feet. Our feet are always in contact with the earth, and this is the place where cold starts to enter the body. And so that warm water of a foot bath helps to dilate the blood vessels in your feet, improving circulation all throughout your body. I also just think, for me at least, in the past, my feet have been very ignored. And the older I've gotten, the more I have been dedicated to just like giving my feet really good attention, because they support me and I do not want to be hobbling around later in life. I want to really care for my feet. Foot baths also just help to release built up tension. I stand all day long when I'm in my treatment room with clients, and so my feet can get really tense, and a foot bath is just the ticket after a long day on my feet. It also is going to help to trigger our body's relaxation response. Just a 10 to 15 minute soak before bed can actually help lower cortisol. It can help you fall asleep faster. And you may be asking, okay, well, why just a foot bath? Why not a full bath? I love a bath. Baths are amazing, but the foot bath is actually a little easier to fit in. You've got really no prep or cleanup. I guess you do have to dump the basin out, but it's not as big of a ordeal as taking a whole bath. But also it's really for directing that energy downward, for calming your mind and balancing all of that upward airy energy that we have during this time of year that can make us very anxious or scattered. It can make sleep more difficult this time of year. Maybe you're more prone to insomnia. So especially a magnesium foot bath can help with better sleep. So what you do is you get any basin. This can get as bougie or as accessible as you want, and then fill it halfway full or so with warm water. And then I myself like to add magnesium flakes. You can order these on the internet. You can get them at most natural food stores. Ginger powder is also really lovely for increasing circulation. Mustard powder is another favorite, especially if you feel like you're getting sick. Lavender is a really nice option. So play around with different foot bath add-ins, or you can just do warm water and let your feet soak for about 10 to 15 minutes. Do be sure that you've brought a towel over with you. I try to do this as like a silent thing, or like reading a book. I try to not be on my phone because that kind of defeats the purpose of what you're trying to do. But foot baths all fall, all winter, definitely a game changer. Okay, so we have talked about breath work for lungs. We've talked about warming food, seasonal produce. We've talked about grounding workouts, foot baths. Next up is making beeswax candles. I talked about these in my circadian rhythm episode, and I was asked to talk more about them on the podcast. I am trying to get my life together to be doing beautiful aesthetic YouTube videos. So I have the intention to create a YouTube video that is a how-to with beeswax candles, but honestly, they're so easy. And I love these because they literally carry the sunlight from summer into the darker months. They're made from pollen that's gathered during the bright half of the year. And so I kind of feel like when you're burning one, you're just like symbolically bringing that solar energy back indoors. Beeswax candles are also a functional medicine for your home environment. They're emitting negative ions as they burn, which can help to neutralize dust and dander and toxins in the air. If the house is stinky, I love to burn a beeswax candle because it just neutralizes that. And it's also a small way of tending to the lung space of your home. So very seasonally appropriate. So what you need for making beeswax candles is pure beeswax pellets or chopped blocks. You can often find these at a natural grocer's. You can order them online from places like Mountain Rose Herbs. If you have a local beekeeper who is willing to give you some beeswax or sell you some beeswax, that's even better. You will need cotton or wood wicks. And with the wick, this is the whole thing. The wick is the hardest part of the candle making process because I will sometimes buy expensive beeswax candles from Whole Foods and they've used a horrible wick that like literally just makes a little tiny burn space down the center and there's so much beeswax left over. I actually always save my beeswax candles to make new candles with. So all of this to say, the next thing you need is a mold. And with your mold, you want to be very intentional about what type of a wick you have gotten. If it's a very small mold, then a smaller wick will be appropriate. But if you have a larger candle mold, you need to have either a larger wick, they come in different sizes, or you need to have 2 wicks in the candle so that you're not just burning this little tiny trail down the center of the candle. The last thing that you need is a double boiler or a heat-proof bowl over simmering water. What I use for this is a Pyrex glass measuring cup. I have an old one that was from when I was a kid and all of the numbers had smudged off. So I use that specifically for beeswax candles. So you're going to take your beeswax. You want to melt it slowly over low heat. You don't want to rush it. It just needs to be liquefied. You don't want to make the wax boil or bubble. And then once it is melted, you can stir in a little bit of coconut oil or olive oil if you want to. It will help the candle to burn a little bit more evenly. If you're wanting to add essential oils into this, you will want to add like some coconut oil to it so it will throw the scent a little bit more. So once you've melted all of this down, you're going to anchor your wick into the center of the jar. And then you're going to carefully pour the melted wax. At the top, I like to either have my wick wrapped around a pencil or have 2 pencils side by side or 2 popsicle sticks to keep the wick steady within the mold. So then you're just going to let it cool and harden completely. I will usually let it harden for about 72 hours before trimming the wick to about 1/4 of an inch. And now you've got your candle. You will obviously just pop it out of the mold prior to trimming the wick. And it's super easy. Very cost effective. Beeswax candles are really expensive to buy, and so making them is very cost effective. You've got no synthetic fragrance, no paraffin. It's a whole fall vibe. And I think it's just such a beautiful thing to add to your fall bucket list. It's something that I'm going to do with my sister and her kids here in a few weeks. They've never done it before. And I think it's a great kid-friendly, fun activity as long as you keep them away from the hot wax, obviously. Okay, so next on my list is to create a cold and flu care kit. I love having little herbal kits because it's just like having this like moment of comfort waiting for you. You've got it all set up before you get sick so that when you do, you're not searching around for everything. I have this for all kinds of things. I have a period kit, and because it's cold and flu season, I want to focus on what to put in this for cold and flu. I think that this is so fun because it reconnects you with that old folk tradition of having a home apothecary. If you have not started your home apothecary and you're a listener of this podcast, I really think it's a wonderful thing. There are some great books out there to help you. I actually just got a new one. So I follow these cute mom and daughter pair on YouTube called The Honeystead, and they just came out with a book called The Beekeeper's Apothecary, a foundational guide for becoming your own herbalist. And this, I actually just got it in the mail this morning. It is such a beautiful book. The photos are gorgeous, and it really gives you a whole guide to creating your whole at-home apothecary. I think that they also have an online course on creating a home apothecary. But if you're not ready to go all the way in on that, just making one little kit for cold and flu care, I think is a perfect way to start. So what I would recommend for this is, first, I love a thyme steam. Fresh thyme is amazing and best, but if you don't always have fresh thyme growing in your kitchen, the next best thing is dried thyme, any type of an aromatic mint family plant. So sage, thyme, rosemary, having some of these in a little pouch ready for steam is so amazing. Doing this as a steam when you're sick is fantastic for the respiratory system. The next is having infused honey. So thyme, again, is amazing, highly antimicrobial. Garlic is another option. Honey is just so cool. This is another reason why I recommend honey masks, especially if you have a lot of congestion in your skin. Honey has this really interesting ability to suck stuff out of other things. And so echinacea or coneflower is another option for an infused honey. So honey basically just is a solvent for sucking out all of the medicinal benefits from these compounds like garlic or sage, ginger. And so you can put these items in the honey, let it sit for 4 weeks, and then you've got a really lovely infused honey. Elderberry syrup, fire cider. I have a fire cider recipe blog on my website that I will link in the show notes. And I love having on hand for cold and flu wild cherry bark tincture or syrup. You can buy the tincture. It's often at Sprouts. I first tried wild cherry tincture the first time I had COVID, and I could not stop coughing. And I had just learned about wild cherry bark as a cough suppressant, and I was so amazed. It was not a cough that was productive at all. It was just a cough that was killing me. And the wild cherry bark just has this amazing anti-spasmodic property to it. This is definitely not something that you want to use long-term or in high doses. And this is definitely something you want to avoid during pregnancy or with infants. But if that is not your situation, definitely check that out. Of course, always researching to make sure that it's appropriate for your unique body and constitution. The next thing in the cold and flu kit is just a small jar of vapor balm. This is something that you could make with pine or eucalyptus, maybe a little bit of menthol. I also really love, there is Cosmetic. They're a Denver CBD company, and they have a muscle cream that I actually use in facials. It is so good. I will link that as well, but I really love that on the chest. And then, of course, having some type of a hydration tea blend with marshmallow, oat straw, licorice, something for moisture when you're sick. And then finally, having some broth cubes or stock prepped in the freezer. Have that set ahead of time so that you can not have to worry about making a whole batch of bone broth when you're sick. Next up on our fall bucket list is decluttering your space. I had a great episode last year. It was one of my more popular episodes all about decluttering in the fall. I'll link that in the show notes. In the episode, I talked about just literally going through, it's called a life edit, and you go through every area in your house. You completely declutter your kitchen and get rid of old stuff, your closets. I even went into decluttering your online spaces, clearing out your email inboxes, clearing out old photos, clear out all the doubles, all the screenshots, whatever. But it's just like such a beautiful, refreshing way to let go. Next up on my list, number 9 out of 10 is Abhyanga and Garshana. So Garshana is like dry brushing, but with raw silk gloves. I carry these in the online apothecary. I will link them as well. I also have a beautiful Abhyanga oil that I love. But Garshana, that dry brushing, but with the gloves, is amazing because it's going to slough away dull, dry skin cells. It's going to help our body eliminate waste and boost our immunity. The reason that these silk gloves are specifically lovely in the fall is because they're much more gentle than a traditional dry brush would be. Sometimes a dry brush can be kind of scratchy and inflammatory to that airy, windy, crispy energy. And so the gloves are a little bit more grounding. They're a little bit more soothing. And then Abhyanga is a warm oil self-massage. Abhyanga is going to replenish oils lost to dryness and just be very warming and grounding during this season. I've talked about Abhyanga quite a bit on the podcast before. But I love specifically the Pavani oil that I carry. It's called the Tridoshic oil. It smells amazing. It's very grounding, but it also has gotu kola in it, which is one of my absolute favorite herbs for firming the skin. Studies have shown that gotu kola is actually more firming than isolated vitamin C for our skin. And so anytime that that's an ingredient in a skincare product, I'm all about it. And I love that it is in this Abhyanga oil because who doesn't want that for their body, not just for the face? Okay, so number 10 on our list, last but not least, is improving your nighttime routine. The nights are now longer, the days are a little bit shorter, and so it's really, really important. Nature is calling us to get more rest, to get more sleep. And so improving our nighttime routine so that we're able to go to bed early, fall asleep easily, stay asleep. The nighttime routine is essential. So for me, my nighttime routine is washing my face and then doing a face massage of whatever type. I do have opening up today sale for my fall face massage workshop. This is a 6 weeks workshop where we get together live once a week for 6 weeks and learn facial massage. I offer this twice a year in the fall and the spring. So as this episode drops on October 13th, I believe. Yes, October 13th is when sale for the fall cohort of 2025 is opening up. I open it up about a month ahead of time so that I can get supplies to everybody who signs up. We're doing cupping and gua sha as well during this particular cohort. If you're listening in the future, it may have changed. But yeah, that opens up today. Face massage is essential for my nighttime routine because it is just a wonderful way to settle in, get back into my body, out of my head and into the body. I'm a big fan of silence before bed, and so I really like to just have some time with my own thoughts, massaging my face. After that, or sometimes at the same time, I will do legs up the wall. And so this is where you put your legs up the wall. I'll do it on the headboard so that I can just flip around and go right to sleep afterwards. So this is like a little magic trick for your nervous system because your blood and lymph flow are draining gently back toward your torso when you have your feet up in the air. And this eases the workload of the heart and again activates the parasympathetic nervous system. It also helps your breath is going to deepen, your pulse slows down, and it just helps to balance any scattered energy, bringing all of your energy back toward your heart. Maybe helping shift your perspective a little bit, maybe surrendering control and just letting the outside world fall away for a few minutes. So I do this for about 5 to 10 minutes at nighttime. And then afterwards, I will flip around and I have a journal specifically for gratitude where I write 10 things that I'm grateful for. I send love to 3 people who are annoying me. This practice alone has been completely life-changing. If someone's extra annoying, I try to imagine them as a little child and just sending them love. It can be really hard sometimes. And then the last thing I do is I'll get a really boring nonfiction book and I have a little red light book clip, turn off the light, put my red light on, read a nonfiction book for a little bit, and that just makes me pass out so fast. So I've played around with my nighttime routine for years, trying to find the perfect thing. And there's going to be different routines that fit better for you in different seasons of your life. That's just what happens to be really helpful to me right now. I also like the idea of maybe making a menu for nighttime so that if you don't like doing the same thing every night, you have all of your options and you pick 3. That can be kind of fun. But I just think that supporting your nighttime routine is the best way to have a good morning the next morning. Sleep is just so essential. We know this. And so, yeah, that's my final thing for the fall bucket list. So again, on our fall bucket list, we have breath work for lungs. We have warming foods, really getting that grounding, warming sensation every time we're eating. Eating up seasonal produce. When we're exercising, making sure that we're focusing on grounding, warming, rhythmic workouts. Next up was foot baths, beeswax candles, having a cold and flu kit ready to go, decluttering your space. And again, check out the episode about decluttering your space in the fall. I'll link it in the show notes. Next is Abhyanga and Garshana, that gentle dry brushing along with warm oil massage. Very grounding this time of year. And then finally, improving your nighttime routine. If this was helpful to you, I would love if you would share with a friend who would also find a little bit of value from the episode. I am no longer on social media. I have retired from social media. And so I really want to lean into word of mouth. And so it really, really means the world to me for you to tell others about how much you're enjoying this podcast. Let them know so that they can enjoy it as well. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. Next week, I'm going to be back and I'm actually going to talk a little bit about my retirement from social media, what that looks like as a business owner, as a personal person, and what I'm doing in my life instead and how my life has improved leaps and bounds. So if that's an interest, tune in next week. And I hope you have a beautiful day. Until we meet again, be well. You've been listening to Skin, Earth, Vitality. If you like what you heard today, consider giving me a 5-star rating. It helps other people just like you to find the show. You can shop products and find all of my offerings on my website, stratumaesthetics.com, and follow me on my social channels @stratumaesthetics.